Tanner McNally with Evergreen Exteriors doing a voiceover for the Natural Grocery in McCall. We're going to start off on these angles over here. What we have right now is we have all these boards 45. We change up this application style a little bit with composite decking, so adding a new joist in on these inside angles right here, running one board diagonally through here, or running what I would prefer to do is running a herringbone pattern through this transition right here. So one board long, back and forth, stepping all the way through this 45-degree transition. Reason that we would prefer to do that is if you run a straight 45 like it is right now, you'll see more uniform opening and closing, and it will look worse as time goes on as the deck ages, especially in a commercial application like this one. So I'd recommend and really prefer to do is a herringbone pattern in this corner versus the current just straight cut 45. Cruise around from the joists. Most of these joists look like they're in pretty mediocre shape. What we do for all these joists that you see right here is we run new tape over the top of these. It's called joist tape. What it does, especially in climates like McCall, is as guys track snow from their boots and snow blows in on top of these decks, it's going to prevent that water from binding down in on top of the deck board and rotting out our fasteners and rotting out those joists. Cruise along the outside edge. Here's all of the current railing systems. What we'd probably have to do for many of these is run a mid-span support. So getting rid of these, continuing on with the same post to keep that same style through is what I'm assuming, that not the same posts themselves, but the same style of post. So we can kind of pull the style out from the siding to right here, and then running the black aluminum railing prefab throughout these systems right here. This is going to prevent rattling. It's going to be easier to maintain and won't be as annoying of a point for you guys in the future. Going back through here, everything here is pretty self-explanatory. Not sure what we have going on underneath this plywood. Stairs are all chill. Let's see. Over here against this wall right here, we'd want to step back. There's going to be a height difference. The current decking you guys have out there right now is 1.5 inches thick. What we'd want to switch over to, or what the only option for composite decking is going to be 1 inch thick nominally. So it's going to leave a little bit of space, which is actually perfect because we want to keep the siding stepped off the decking anyways. That's code. So we can tuck a little bit of L-base flashing in there and then have that little transition area, which will offer a longer span solution for both your siding and the decking. It won't trap natural organic material in those little areas over there. All the same general ideas over here. For these little stairs over here, this is the area where I was talking to Ember on the phone. When you have stairs with natural wood decking, one of the benefits of wood decking is that's going to absorb some of that water and some of that ice, and you're going to get that ice and snow is going to stick on top of there and provide a little bit of traction. Whereas with composite decking is capped with plastic, so it's going to be a little bit slippier or slippy in these stairs. So what we want to do is we want to run like a grip tape or an abrasive material on top of the decking specifically for these stairs, just to prevent any kind of slip in the future, or minimize it as much as possible with these products. Back the outside, the same kind of, these joists definitely have some wear and tear on them for sure. But I think the majority of them would be fine, especially with joist tape on top of them, so we can get a whole nother lifespan out of them. Here's the same post that you guys have already noticed is a problem. Over here, what we'd want to do too is, let me pause it. So what I included in my estimate is facing out all these rim joists with a new composite material. What I expect for your guys' estimate was specifically LP Expert Finish. And facing out all these, when we face out these rim joists with a new composite, right now you have, your right here is your rim joist, and right here you have a 3/4 inch thick 1x material. What we'd swap this out to is a 9/16 instead of the actual wood, we swap out to a 9/16 composite material. What this will do is this will be less maintenance for you guys. You don't have to restain it, and it will match the aesthetics of the deck versus the current system where it's, it would look kind of funky if we left the old stained material on there. Same thing for all these stairs over here. So we have that same facing of the 3/4 inch. I'm not sure what kind of decking you guys have. It's redwood over there, but that 3/4 inch redwood or pine, whatever it is. Next year we'd swap that out to a composite material, the LP Expert Finish, just so that way it matches and doesn't look so funky. Over here, the question I do have is about this lattice underneath the deck, because we have all this lattice throughout right here. The question is are we going to leave that lattice? We're going to put a new lattice in. Do you want to completely block off this deck? Just looking for kind of general thoughts over there in that area. And that is something that I did not include in my estimate, is that lattice work over there. Everything over here, still pretty much the same. A good example, something to bring up too, while we've got this going right now, is how these deck boards are run currently. So if you look around, we can see seams that are stepped throughout the deck. The big difference when switching over from composite decking or switching over from wood decking to composite decking is that we can't stagger our seams throughout the field like this. So, they have, either a straight line going through or randomized seams throughout the deck. For composite decking, you either need a double joist for seams, so we'd have to run double joist for every single seam, or we can railroad all of our deck boards. I usually prefer railroading deck boards because, especially in a climate like McCall where we have such extreme temperature swings, I want to control and localize the expansion and contraction of our deck boards to one specific area. And we don't have, seams opening and closing, creating tripping hazards throughout the deck. So what we do is we'd railroad all of our deck boards at a set length based off of your deck. For yours, I think I ran 16s, but somewhere around 16-foot increments, and then we would run a horizontal board or a perpendicular board through the deck like that, and then have more deck boards going off the other side of it. And like I said, that's gonna, pin all of our expansion contraction at one point. We're gonna have a board there going the other way, and it's gonna localize everything and keep the costs more manageable, along with giving you guys a higher quality, longer term solution. Same thing over here on this 45. I'd want to, let's see if I can pause this better. I want to run a herringbone pattern, and a herringbone pattern is like that pattern you see on old floors. We'd have to add joists in for this one for sure. So we'd run a full deck board capped all the way off on this side, and then a full deck board capped all the way off on this side. So that way we have straight and 90-degree cuts on all of our deck boards, and we don't have this 45 look right here. Like I said, especially with composite decking and the expansion contraction you get out of composite decking, these are going to open up and look terrible after 3 or 4 years. So that's why we'd want to run that herringbone system. Everything over here is pretty self-explanatory. We didn't include these little decks over here on this backside. We didn't include that little deck, that satellite deck out front. Either one of those were included in our estimate. That sounds like they're not looking to be replaced, which is good. Here's another example of that fascia right here, just kind of showing off that fascia on the outside edge of that rim joist over there that I included in the estimate to be swapped out. Okay, that should be it. Thank you. Tanner McNally signing off.